night planned for all of you. We're very excited you're all here, but we don't start until 7. So we have some time, and there's some things you should know about that you can do to fill the time until we start. And the first thing is there are 2 people who are going to be selling books in the back of the room. One is Roger Stone's book, and the other is Sid Bowdidge's book. They're both here tonight.
Now we have a special treat that no one introduced me to this young lady yet, so she's going to have to introduce herself, and she is going to sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail from the twilight's last gleaming and the bright rested stars? I'm sorry, guys, this is impromptu. From the
participate in something else. There's a big sign here in front of the stage. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. No collusion. Only media lies. Next, I've been working hand in hand with our program director, Ms. Suzanne Days. I can't tell you how hard this woman works for our group. All I do is say yes and no, and it's made my job so easy, it's unbelievable. Okay, Suzanne, I'll let you take over from here.
It's like having 2 husbands. Yes, dear is all he has to say, and we get along great. And he feeds me too. He's a great cook. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all of you. This is a phenomenal turnout. We're very happy about it. There's 7 slots left for the breakfast tomorrow morning, and they have to be bought online, so don't try to get me to buy you tickets. I can't do it. So if you have a phone and you want to place an order, it's at the 48th person, it's over. I want a special shout out to my pickleball buddies who are here. I've gotten a huge crowd of pickleball people who started signing up because I'm in line every day. And I promote Villages for Trump in line. And I also want to extend it to my neighbors who have also, browbeat into becoming members. So, without further ado, I'm going to have Jim Volpe introduce our first speaker. Jim?
About a month ago, David G. asked me to meet him over at his office at Panera's in Lake Sunco then. And there's a fellow named Sid Bowdidge there. And Sid shared with us his roots originally from Massachusetts, but he moved to New Hampshire, and he went and signed up for a Trump volunteer meeting. The next thing he knows, he's the head of the Trump volunteer program for the state of New Hampshire. The next thing he knows, he's on the national trail for President Trump. Well, I read his book, and it's in the back if you people want to buy one later on, and I got halfway through and I would have quit, I'll tell you. But this guy went through, he's a real patriot. Sid Bowdidge.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me here tonight to tell my story, share my story with you. And that was a great intro, because without the good Lord, I wouldn't be standing here now. My journey began in May 2015, and having never been a believer of God my entire life, I was raised agnostic, I guess. And in May 2015, my dad passed away, and I found myself sitting there saying, what in the world have I done with my life? Where has it gone? What have I done? You know, I haven't done anything really memorable. Had some great kids, a couple of great kids, but you know, it just wasn't there. So anyway, somebody that was close to me came by shortly after my dad passed away, and he said, hey, I've got a movie I'd like you to see. I said, sure, okay. It's called God's Not Dead. Okay, I'll watch it. You know, I'm agnostic. I'm not an atheist, so I'll watch it. Well, I'll tell you that night, watching that movie, I know some of you have seen it, but if you haven't, there's parts in it. A particular part was this term, this sentence, was apparently from one of the ancient philosophers, and it was, without God, everything is permissible. And I sat there with tears rolling down my cheeks, and I felt the Holy Spirit come to me. I felt a coolness come into my body, I had goosebumps, and I knew something was happening. And I will tell you, from that night on, I watched that movie and I said, there's no way that you could say God does not exist. And I came away a believer after that night. And in July, I was baptized. I gave my life to Jesus, and I'll tell you, if you had said this to me, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, that said, you're going to be saved someday, you're going to be a born-again Christian, I would have said, yeah, sure, what are you smoking? But I'll tell you, having experienced it, it was so powerful, and I remember the night like it was yesterday. So, let me jump ahead here. So a month later, then candidate Trump was coming to Bedford, New Hampshire, and it was put to me, hey, Trump's coming to town, want to go see him? I said, sure, that'll be fun, just for the entertainment factor. So I went, and there were about 200 people at this house. It was just mobbed. And at that point, then Mr. Trump talked about his agenda, illegal immigration, the whole 9 yards. And I'll tell you, I came away, still talk in the dark. Should I keep going?
Okay. Liberals are here.
So, yeah, really. I guess so. They'll all hold up a lighter. So anyway, came away from there feeling something I hadn't felt in years. And came away from there feeling something I hadn't felt in years, and that was pride. Proud to be an American. How many years do we live without feeling proud to be an American, right? You know? So I came away from that feeling, hey, wow, this is something I haven't heard for a long time. I like this guy as president. This is more than just a show. And the next thing I know, I'm hearing, hey, you know, you guys got to come and phone bank. Phone bank? I don't want a phone bank. Well, next thing I knew, I was phone banking. So, anyway, this was in Manchester, New Hampshire, in the headquarters. So, and by the way, will you give me a sign for 5, Suzanne? When okay. So I go phone banking. Next thing I know, I'm setting up events and taking them down. At that point, then Mr. Trump was coming to the States sometimes twice a week. You know, this went on for months. So it was taking down, setting up events, taking them down, and then it was, hey, Sid, we need a motorcade driver. Are you up for that? Let's go. You know, so I went motorcading, and, you know, what a thrill. You know, it's something, you know, how you're coming up to a red light, what's your instinct, right? I gotta hit the brakes. Well, you don't hit the brakes. You just stay on the gas, you know, with the blue lights all going, and stadies, and Secret Service, and you blow through the lights, and it takes a while to get used to that. So that was fun, that was really exciting, and again, I'm still a volunteer, putting in more and more and more hours, because as time went on, I knew how important this was going to be. I've been following politics, you know, second half of my life. And, like everybody here, you began to realize over the past, 10 years, 20 years, something's going on in this country and it's not good. And I like this guy's agenda. So, we continued. I volunteered. And then I said one day to the deputy state director, hey, if something opens up, I'd like to come on staff. And I got Sid, this is a young man's game. You don't want to do this. So I said, well, you know what? I'm actually in better shape than most of you guys, so I do like this. And of course, little did I know, I began to realize as time was going on that God had a plan for me. This wasn't just a coincidence, and I was really becoming aware of that because it was one thing after another. So October 2015, it was an opportunity to join the team and come on staff as a campaign office manager in Keene, New Hampshire, which is a liberal hotbed in New Hampshire. But we had people coming in there, I will tell you what. Oh, am I supposed to say that? I like walking.
Are you happy today?
I like walking. So anyway, I really have to stand in one place. So I signed on and I ran that campaign office in Keene, New Hampshire. And the one thing we heard all the time, we had Democrat after Democrat after Democrat coming in and saying, I've been a Democrat my whole life. I voted for Obama once. I voted for Obama twice. I'm voting for Trump. And we heard that over and over and over. All kinds of Democrats. It was so inspiring. So now, December 2015, they came to me and said, hey, Sid, we need somebody to run the ground campaign, and your name came up. Great, I'm always up for a challenge, let's do it. By the way, what's a ground campaign? Because I was never, in politics, and that was one thing I loved about then Mr. Trump. He wasn't a politician, and I was never involved either. So when they, so I got a crash course on how to run a ground campaign, which is all cell phone, app-driven. And of course, it's different. It works differently on an Android as it does an iPhone. So training people was just an exercise in frustration. But so, as you all know, and I got to kind of skip along here. As you all know, we won New Hampshire handily in February. Okay, and we really won it handily. So at that point, they came to a handful of us a couple days before the primary and said, hey, we're putting a strike team together to travel across the country, and would you be interested in doing that? And performing the same task, running the ground campaign. So, quite frankly, I prayed over it, and the answer that I got from God was, I brought you this far, you need to keep going. So I said, sure, let's go. So a couple days after the primary in New Hampshire, 6 of us that were on staff in New Hampshire all left, and my job was to run the ground campaign. We headed for South Carolina, and then we headed for Texas. This is all in my book, and I took pictures all over the country that people haven't seen before. And, without the volunteers, without you folks, it never would have happened. And I was always so aware and so grateful at the time and effort that all you people, I wasn't here in Florida, but, all over the country, we just had thousands of people pouring into the campaign offices. So we hit South Carolina, we hit Texas, and we would fly in. We'd wrap up, like in South Carolina, the day of the vote there in the primary. We were on a plane to Texas to do the same thing. Some of the states would have campaign offices already opened up, some wouldn't, and we'd have to find our own. Some of them we had frustrations, like in Dallas. I got chosen for the Dallas office, and to run that one. We're in 4 other cities in Texas. So I pull up to the Dallas campaign office, and there's beer and wine across the front of it up top. I said, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. Because as some of you may know, President Trump doesn't drink alcohol. Okay? So I'm thinking, beer and wine, we can't have a campaign office with beer and wine. So to make a long story short, we had to bail out of that office, go find another one, move everything there, and then start again. And of course, what would happen, every state would fly into, then candidate Trump would fly in, do a rally, and we'd pull everybody from there, emails and, everything, and phone calls and everything. So From there, we would then spread people out all over the state from each campaign office, and then it was off to the Midwest, off to Ohio, and then off to Wisconsin and Indiana, and it was 85 to 90 hours a week. It was and it was every week, 7 days a week, and there were times, but as time went on, God was putting special people in my life at just the right time. For instance, I got to go to the First Baptist Church of Dallas and was blessed and had prayers said by Pastor Robert Jeffers, which some of you may know from Fox, and wonderful guy. So, I mean, and, you know, a 30-piece orchestra behind the singers, 30 people standing up behind their choir singers, and you talk about moving. I mean, it was just so inspirational. But, you know, I had to stop on a Sunday sometimes, grab a couple hours, and find somewhere to go to church. I needed God, and I needed to walk into a church to get what I needed, and I always derived my strength, because it was the journey of a lifetime. I mean, you know, it was just go, go, go. Jump on the next plane, off to Indiana, the next plane, off to Wisconsin, then off to Nebraska, and finally we're in California at the end, and went to the Republican National Convention as a whip for Alaska, which, by the way, and this, you talk about a mastermind, you know, again, Mr. Trump knew that he needed Paul Manafort. And if Paul Manafort wasn't in place during that Republican National Convention, we may not have a President Trump in place right now. So he knew what he was doing, despite Manafort's background. But without him at that convention, because there were factions that were all over the place that were trying to go against Trump. There were Rubio people, and as some people here were. But at any rate, we won the convention, as everybody knows. And of course, in California, we had, in essence, he had won already. He was the nominee. So at that point, I started driving in the ground campaign again. Okay, hold on. I started driving in the motorcade again. There we go. And I've got all these just cool pictures in my book of SWAT teams out front of candidate Trump's house in Beverly Hills. We had to be there at 4:30 in the morning, 2 hours before for a bomb sweep. Every vehicle, Secret Service, state police, local police, everybody. 2 hours before. We would drive him around California all day into the night, drop him off, and Corey and the rest of the staff at typically anywhere from 11:30 to 12:30 at night, get back to our hotel about 1:30 because it was an hour away, and be back in his house again at 4:30. So we'd sleep an hour, jump in our suit again. And when I say hour, I thank God all the time for the people that he put in my life. I was introduced to the best friend a guy could ever have, my friend Jason. You'll see him in my book. Jay walked away from his business in Massachusetts, was helping us early on in New Hampshire, walked away from his business, left his partner running it, and a very successful environmental business that he has, and joined us on the campaign. I met him driving motorcade in New Hampshire. He left his business and traveled with me all across the country with us as part of our team. It was just unbelievable what God did in my life. And so we came to the end. How much time do I have, Suzanne? 10 minutes, okay. So we came to the end. I'm sure there's some other things. There's a whole bunch of things that go through my head that I want to talk about and tell folks while I'm up here. But again, you'll read it in my book. Pastor Dave Ford of Wisconsin, for example. We had some Wisconsin people. All right, we loved Wisconsin, and it was a week before Easter. I want to share this with you. It was a week before Easter, and I found myself on that Saturday night, thinking, I need to go to church. I've been to church for weeks now. And so I looked online, looked for some churches, non-denominational is what I was looking for. And I couldn't find the one I wanted. I'd watch a video and then watch another video, and nothing really struck me. So I said, well, I'll deal with this in the morning. So I woke up in the morning and didn't have time to search. So I said, I'll just go to the one I was going to go to anyway then. So I went and met a great friend, Pastor Dave Ford in New Berlin at the Weatherstone Church. And wonderful one. We're still just good friends. And, and again, it was these kind of things that God did in my life to keep me strong going across the country and doing this. And we would fly home for literally about a day to a day and a half in between, about every month or so. One time it was like 6 weeks, and then fly home for a day and a half, and then you're on the plane again, heading back somewhere else. So, you know, again, I was just so blessed to have been chosen to do such a thing, and it really wasn't just the journey of a lifetime. And I ended up back at Dave's church, Pastor Dave's church on Easter, which was terrific, with my family that I was traveling around the country with. And so anyway, we jump forward. So now we hit November 8th, right? And as I say in my book, this was really like you winning a Super Bowl. Like you were on a team that won a Super Bowl. And so when we won, when he won, I should say, it was just unbelievable. We had all worked so hard, and thank God for the volunteers that traveled with us across the country. And one of my stories I like to tell, one of my memories, I should say, about being humble, because that's the other thing that God did through all this. It was so humbling. I was blessed and humbled to have done what I did. And, you know, sitting in a Waffle House one time, I had dropped off a popcorn machine from a big thing we had on the weekend for the campaign office. This was in Indiana. And it's okay if I do this side too, as long as I'm not the lights in. I dropped into this Waffle House. I'm sitting there, just grabbing a quick breakfast, and there's a family comes in, blue-collar family, it's like a farming family, sitting next to me in a booth, all right, about 6 people, and they're talking about Trump being there the day or two before that, and they love Trump. They're talking Trump. So I had to say something, you know, and they said, well, with that accent, you're not from around here. What are you doing here? Because I didn't know what they're talking about. So I told them what I was there for. I ran the ground campaign for day Trump, and you know, we were there for that reason. And they thanked me profusely, and we chatted about, you know, the president and so forth to me. And so I'm sitting there, and the conversation stopped. I, you know, let them go back to what they were doing, and I said to the waitress, "Can I have my check, please?" And she said, "You're all set." I said, "I mean, all set, I didn't pay." And she pointed to people in the booth and said, "They took care of it." And it was truly one of the most humbling things. I mean, if you're not humbled by that, I don't know if there's something wrong. But anyway, it was, so I digress. So we win on November 8th. Shortly after that, I find out that, hey, on the winning team, you get a job in D.C. Great. I remember there was a guy in Texas, Deputy State Director Eric Maroon said to me, when I was saying, "Hey, Sid, so what do you want to do when this is all over?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, we're going to get a job in D.C. if you want one." I want to go to the Department of Education. I said, "You're kidding me." Really? Wow, well, quite frankly, I really don't give a damn. I'm not here to not even think about a job in D.C., and we haven't won yet, so what are you even talking about it for? You know, if we win, great. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, you know, I'm only here to help save our country from the scourge of socialism, and that's so I went to D.C. as a political appointee in the Department of Energy in February 2017. And 3 weeks into it, I got a phone call from the editor of Green Tech Media or something like that. It's the Energy World's publication. "Hey Sid, I found what you had to say on Twitter interesting for a political appointee." And I thought, well, what in the world could that be? So I looked. And I said, oh boy, this is not going to be good. I knew it wasn't going to be good. Because in December 2015, you all might remember the San Bernardino killers, jihadist Muslims. Okay? So then candidate Trump put up a picture of them on his Twitter, and I proceeded to put my feelings underneath it. Not a good idea. And lo and behold, I was out of a job in 2 hours after that. And I was devastated, I'll tell you. But again, here's where the good Lord comes in and came into my life again and again and again. once I started to recover from it, because it was pretty devastating, because I thought, great job, I got a job in the DOE, good benefits, you know, this is where I'm going to be for probably the rest of my life. Not to be. He had some other plans for me. And so I had to forgive this, because I found out from Facebook who did it. It was an Obama mole in the DOE. He was quite proud of himself that he took out a Trump person. So I came home devastated, came home from D.C., and a few people said to me, they said, "You've got a great story to tell. You should write a book." And I thought, well, for goodness sake. Now, after about the third person said that to me, I said, "Okay, Lord, I'm listening. You know, I'm hearing you. Do you want me? Is this what I should do? Should I write a story about my book?" How much? 3 minutes. Thank you. It was within a couple of days I felt the answer in my heart, and I learned, which I had before this anyway, that if you listen, if you really listen, God will speak to you through your heart. And again, being a newbie, you know, I'm like, hey, oh, this is, I knew it was there. I felt the answer, which was, Sid, write the book from your heart, and it'll be inspirational to other people. So I spent 8 months. 8 months, and I wrote the book, and told my story, and I tell a lot of how God affected me and what He did in my life. And my life has been better. I've been blessed to have done what I did. So when people say that, and by the way, I always try to remember to say this, that in terms of the book and writing it, I was simply the pen, and He was the hand. And that was the truth, because it flowed. I spent 8 months just writing this book, and it just flowed. And I thank you every day for what He's done in my life. So, my time's up. But here, more importantly, the book's inspirational to bring other people to Jesus. It's inspirational to get people to step out of their comfort zone, do something you haven't done before, which is certainly something I did. But again, I was blessed and humbled to have done what I did. And I hope it inspires other people, because as I say in it, if my book makes money, as it makes money, much of it's going to go to charities. Because I didn't write it to make money. I wrote it because He wanted me to. So, now we've got to press on, because we don't win the next time. And, you know, as was mentioned earlier, jihadist Muslims, by the way, this whole time, Rick's probably flipping these pictures and I'm not even looking at them. But I'm writing a weekly column for a great website, conservative website called America Out Loud. Last week's was about all the murders that Clinton had done, all right? And, you know, that follow them around for the past, 3 decades. But also I've written these 3-part series on political Islam. Thank you to Mike, by the way. Who gave me a lot of help on that. But that's, we not only do we have a war of ideologies to fight, but we also have Islam to fight, because that is just as intrusive and detrimental to our Christian values as the liberal socialists. So, as was mentioned, get out and vote. People make sure they're getting signed up and registering to vote, because we've got to win in 2020. Well, this was all for nothing, right? So thank you, folks, so much.
I've read Sid's book. It's very moving, and it reminded me of the 2 Trump rallies I went to with President Trump. I was with him, for him. I was in like the 6th row, one of them with my husband, and there's a magnetism about him that emanates in his presence, and it must be God. And in Sid's book, he talks about how President Trump treats everybody with respect and kindness, and people just want him. So,
I'll tell you, I've watched her in a lot of areas, and she does a great job. Our next speaker has been here before. You filled the house for him last time. He gave us a lot of wisdom, a lot of foresight on what's happening. He's just full of information. I would say is the main reason that President Trump ran for president, because this guy encouraged me many, many times. Many, many times. It's untold truth. That's the place you find it. But you know, that word truth has been around for a while. I got to go back to the Lord himself. He used to say, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Then along came Thomas Jefferson, and he said, "The irresistible nature of truth is all it asks, and all it desires is the liberty of appearing." Then we had Winston Churchill, his greatest one when somebody wasn't quite telling the truth like the liberal media today. He would say, "Is this another one of those situations in which the imagination is baffled by the truth?" So anyway, now we have the stone cold truth. So everybody give a Villagers for Truth welcome to Mr. Roger Stone.
My name is not Jesse Smollett. It is great to be back with you again at the Villages. I remember my last time here was a terrific night, and I appreciate each and every one of you being here. As I'm sure you know, there are some topics that I can talk about, and there are some topics that I am prevented. But we can talk about politics. And I'll tell you the main reason why I'm here. Because as I have for the last 40 years, I stand with President Donald Trump. Some people don't know this, but I first recognized that Donald Trump had the size and the courage and the independence and the energy and the stamina to be a great president as early as 1988. And I urged him to run again in 2000, again in 2012, because I thought correctly that Mitt Romney was a loser. And in retrospect, I would have to say that probably 2012 was still too early. You had to have the exact confluence of events. You had to have the perfect storm. And that finally happened in 2016 when the American people got fed up with politics and politicians and the media and their collusion. Donald Trump's nomination and election was the hostile takeover of the Republican Party. And I'm a proud member of the Republican Party. I came into the party as a Goldwater Republican, believing in smaller government, lower taxes, less spending, a strong national defense, but not going around the world looking for trouble. And the sad truth is, by 2016, it was apparent that the two-party duopoly working together had given us endless foreign war, where our inherent national interests were never clear, the erosion of our civil liberties, where it was admitted that the intelligence agencies were collecting metadata on Americans, immigration policies that cheated the people who were waiting their turn and trying to come here legally for the promise of America. At the same time, making our neighborhoods and communities unsafe. Big, multi-international, one-size-fits-all trade deals that were extremely beneficial for our trading partners, but not so much for the United States. And Donald Trump changed the face of politics. Prior to his election, to be elected president, you needed to be a governor or a U.S. senator or a general. And that's changed. And Beto O'Rourke, in all honesty, is a demonstration of that change. Because now to run for president, you merely need to be well known. Does anybody think Jack Kennedy would have run for president in 1960 if he had lost his previous U.S. Senate race? Do not underestimate Mr. O'Rourke, because celebrity is the coin of the realm, and he has as good a chance as the rest of that field. We'll come back and talk about that in a little bit. I guess my greatest concern as the president gears up for re-election is twofold. I do not think we should be overconfident. Yes, he has performed a modern economic miracle. 4.9 million new jobs, 650,000 new manufacturing jobs. You know, those are the jobs Barack Obama said were never coming back. The lowest unemployment in American history, well, that's not true. The lowest unemployment since 1969, when Richard Nixon was president. The lowest unemployment among African Americans and Hispanics since those statistics began being kept. And our president fights a recalcitrant Congress and the courts to seal our border every day. So despite this modern economic miracle, the greatest comeback since Ronald Reagan was president, despite his efforts to fight the two-party duopoly to seal our borders and secure our country, despite his efforts to renegotiate the trade deals that have sucked the jobs out of America, there are two storm clouds on the horizon that I think need to be monitored. First and foremost is the issue of internet censorship. Donald Trump's election in 2016 was really only possible because it was in 2016 that the mainstream media lost their stranglehold, lost their monopoly on political discourse. And it was the rise of a robust, vibrant, alternative media based in the internet that allowed for the election of Donald Trump. And today, no Chairman Nadler of the Judiciary Committee, it is not a right-wing conspiracy theory. Conservatives and Trump supporters and Republicans and libertarians are being systematically censored and deplatformed on the most viable and important internet media, and that poses a danger to this president's re-election. When Facebook and Twitter and Spotify and YouTube and others work in concert to limit free expression, that's collusion that violates antitrust law, and those monopolistic practices should be stopped by the Trump Justice Department. Another great factor that I think is going to help enormously is the fact that Florida is crucial to any strategy adding to 270 electoral votes, and Governor Ron DeSantis is doing an amazing job.
Something about Mr. Selden here. He came here free of charge this time. And he's doing a great job that the truth comes out. And we'd like to take a little collection for him now. And also remember, he's going to be signing books at the end in the back of the room. People are there. And we would gladly appreciate you supporting him on this. Now, he's going to finish his up, and then when he gets through, we're going to go around with the mic and take questions.
Many thanks, Jim. At the end, I want to talk to you about my personal situation. But in the meantime, I salute Governor DeSantis for abandoning the archaic and outmoded views on medicinal marijuana held by Governor Rick Scott, so that people can get their medicine, which is far superior to opiates, and do so in the most efficient and cost-efficient method. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. I also applaud the governor for suspending the tolls when we found massive fraud by the state, where we are essentially paying twice. More solid leadership. The popularity of Governor DeSantis will be a major factor in the president's ability to carry Florida again. Now let's look at this Democratic field, if we may. Joe Biden. For those of you who have not been on the internet in the last couple hours, a second woman has now come forward discussing how Joe Biden inappropriately touched her. No, this is not a smear. This is not a fantasy. We have literally hundreds of pictures and hours of video of the former vice president inappropriately touching children who are not his own. I find that pretty creepy. But more importantly, Joe Biden's been wrong on every major public policy issue in his career. And when they say he leads the Democratic field at 29% or 26%, after 8 years as vice president, that's not good, that's bad. After 8 years under Dwight Eisenhower, Richard Nixon was in the high 60s. After just 4 years under Jimmy Carter, Walter Mondale was in the high 50s. After 8 years under Ronald Reagan, George Bush was in the high 50s or low 60s. So that measure speaks to the weakness of Joe Biden as a candidate. And in all honesty, when it comes to the war on drugs, no one has put more black people or poor people in jail than Joe Biden. He would be an eminently beatable candidate. I believe Donald Trump would beat him like a drum. Kamala Harris, her record of black people for the nonviolent crime, first-time crime of possession of small amounts of drugs rivals Joe Biden. And then, of course, recently you saw that in an effort to be cool, she said, well, as a Jamaican, she smoked marijuana listening to Snoop and Tupac, except for that neither one of them were recording when she was in college. And she'd done this. Then there is Cory Booker. Cory Booker says that he's in favor of judicial term limits. Not necessarily a bad idea, but why don't we start with term limits for U.S. senators and Congress? As the mayor of Newark, Cory Booker voted on a contract from the city water authority to his law firm, which then turned around and paid him all $600,000. He said that he didn't vote for the contract, but the minutes of the water authority show him present and voting yes. Then he said, well, no, it was a buyout from my old law firm. No, it was deferred compensation. What it was, ladies and gentlemen, is graft. And if he were a Hispanic Republican, he'd be in jail right now. And the Democrats want to change the Electoral College. The Electoral College was genius by the Founding Fathers because it protects the small states and means that everybody counts in a presidential election. You see, they would like to eliminate the middle part of the country. They would like New York and Pennsylvania and California and Illinois alone to decide the presidential contest. The Electoral College could be reformed. It's pretty simple. There was a bill sponsored by Senator Henry Cabot Lodge endorsed by President Eisenhower that would merely apportion the electoral vote for each state based on the popular vote within that state, and the number of necessary votes to become president would be lowered. That way, every state counts and every vote counts. You see, doing away with the Electoral College would have put a premium on voter fraud. And therein lies my next concern about the president's re-election. I'm sorry, but if you need a photo ID to get on an airplane, and you need a photo ID to buy a pack of cigarettes, why not a photo ID to vote? It is not discriminatory. The Department of Motor Vehicles can issue photo IDs for those who don't have driver's licenses. They don't have to charge. If you care enough to vote, you could go get your ID and take it to the polling places. Now, I live in Broward County. One of my neighbors told me an extraordinary story because he went down to vote. And he told the nice lady at the table, his name, let's call him Joe Smith, and gave his address. And the woman said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, you already voted this morning. And then she said, well, there's also a Myrtle Smith at that same address. She also voted this morning. To which he said, well, that's my mother. She's been dead for 2 years. Voter fraud in this state is a reality. It is only because brave individuals like Congressman Matt Gaetz demanded an honest count. And therefore, I believe that the President, again, should direct his Justice Department to work on the issue of ballot security so that only people who are qualified and eligible to vote can vote. Now, some of you may have seen my arrest on CNN, and I do face a trial in the District of Columbia on November 5th. I am entitled to tell you that I have pled not guilty, and I will fight till my death. But I must tell you that this is a difficult time for me and my family. I have lost my home. I have lost my savings. I have lost my insurance. I've had to sell my car. And my livelihood, speaking and talking about politics, is obviously somewhat limited. And because of the internet censorship on Facebook, it's more difficult to sell my books. It is, however, with a great deal of gratitude that I can tell you that over 38,000 people have contributed to StoneDefenseFund.com. That's StoneDefenseFund.com. My lawyers estimate that I will need $2 million to put up a vigorous legal defense, and that money is raisable thanks to the contributions and the prayers of so many Americans. To StoneDefenseFund.com can do so. We have card readers in the back for a credit card, or you can go to that website and you have 3 options. You can pay by PayPal, you can pay with a credit card, you can mail us a check. This is not money that I can use for my personal use. Every dollar is dedicated to paying the attorneys I need to mount a vigorous legal defense. Now, I have excellent lawyers, and they are working at far below the rates that they would normally charge. But we have 3 terabytes of data that we have to get through to prepare for trial. I need to hire 2 more lawyers, and I can only count on you. It is times like this that you find out who your real friends are. You see, greatness doesn't come in victory, It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up. Until one has been in the deepest valley, you cannot appreciate the majesty of the highest mountaintop. It was my mentor, President Richard Nixon, who said, "A man is not finished when he is defeated. He is only finished when he quits." Donald Trump will never quit trying to make America great again. I will never quit. Now, I want to tell you a little story. This is a Roger Stone. It's a stone to which I have signed my name. And we did some historical research. This is an exact replica of the very stone that little David used to take down. And we sell these strictly as a paperweight. Some of the ladies like a smaller size to keep in their purse like a good luck charm. Others use it on the desk as a paperweight. And the truth is, I hadn't sold many of these until Rolling Stone and Talking Points Memo and the Huffington Post made fun of me. If you buy your stone today, you will be roughly the 16,000th person to buy a stone. I would be happy to sign it for you. Additionally, we are selling not only my books, I've written 5 books. I'm a New York Times best-selling author. And my favorite, The Making of the President, 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated the American Revolution, tells the story of the most improbable victory in American politics and how he did it. Because you see, Donald Trump is his own strategist. He is his own phrase maker. He is his own speechwriter. He is his own chief advisor. It's not like Karl Rove, let's say, and George W. Bush. Donald Trump is very much his own man. And his victory is a personal victory where he outfought and outfoxed and outthought the opposition. The difference lies in Ohio and Wisconsin and Michigan and Florida and Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump was able to get votes that eluded Mitt Romney and John McCain. Because Trumpism is larger than the Republican Party. It is a reform movement that is opposed by a media elite who are determined to distort the facts about this president and his presidency. I ask you for your help because I want to be available to help re-elect President Donald Trump in 2020. You can go to stonedefensefund.com online. As I say, you can pass that link on to others who may be interested. We will be collecting contributions tonight. It will be my honor to sign stones for you, or books for you, or to pose with selfies with you. I appreciate being here tonight. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. And God bless you. And if it's a question I'm not permitted to answer, I will simply tell you so.
Okay, Roger, I'm going to ask you the first one.
All right, sure.
It's maybe in the church you shouldn't answer it, but you may be able to. What's your opinion of what they did to Manafort?
This is an item I'm not able to get into.
Okay, good.
I do know Paul very well. Obviously, I feel badly for he and his family to be on that. I'm not able to.
Okay, good. Who would like to ask a question?
Okay, here we have this young lady over here.
I would like to know what it felt like to be dragged out the way that they dragged you out of your home.
Well, I can only address this in a limited way. I don't have a valid passport. I do not own a gun. Thanks to CNN and MSNBC, I have a very recognizable mug. So I don't think I was a flight risk. Beyond that, I pled not guilty. The mainstream media predicted that I would be, for 2 years, indicted for treason or conspiracy or Russian collusion, but I am not charged with any of those crimes. And as I said, I pled not guilty, and I will fight for my own vindication. Thank you. Another question.
So, from California. I was in California when it was a Republican state, Republican governor. Basically was a Republican state. From my experience, the transition to the Democrats in California has been because they can obtain license, birth certificates, social security numbers at flea markets. They go in and pay $60, get those documents, change their name, walk over to driver's license, and get a driver's license, and then they can vote. How are we going to stop that?
Well, if anybody doesn't think that the Democrats' support for open borders is about changing the makeup of our electorate, they don't understand what's going on. We only recently learned that there are over 11,000 illegal immigrants registered to vote in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania will be a crucial state for the president's re-election. This is why I'm so proud of the president, who in the face of enormous establishment and elitist criticism continues to fight to seal our borders.
Good evening, Roger. How are you?
Excellent.
I have a question that leads into what you said at the end of your speech. All of us know that 89% of the Republican Party and Republican voters support Trump. But 42% of American voters are independent. And through the entire Trump campaign, as well as now, I have never seen, both on the press nor from Trump's campaign, any effort to mobilize the independent movement in this country that is the swing vote for every election, not only his own, but for everyone that he wants to run with him. And I'm sure you know my love for independent politics. So I'm wondering, do you see anything coming up forward in the future?
Well, let me say two things. First of all, one of the keys historically for a president's re-election has been not facing the challenge within his own party. The president's approval rating among Republicans, most recently in a poll that I respect, was at 93%. So why is Mitt Romney talking about challenging him? Mitt Romney, who was begging the president for an endorsement in his U.S. Senate race in Utah. Why does Mitt Romney, who's been an executive his entire life, want to be a junior senator from a state that he doesn't even live in? It would be an egregious mistake, whether it is John Kasich or Nikki Haley or Bill Wells, who's a good friend of mine but misguided in this effort, or Mitt Romney, to challenge this president for re-nomination. I would point out to you that it was Trump's ability to reach out to those independents that allowed him to win in 2016, and I'm not running his 2020 campaign, but if I was, that would be the central focus. We cannot win on just our base. We have to get beyond our base. The economic prosperity the president has brought allows us to do that. A recent poll I saw showed that almost a third of African Americans approve of the president. Compare that with 12, 16% under George W. Bush. That is tied to jobs and opportunity and upward mobility for all Americans. Another question.
Thank you for all you do for our country. Most of the conservatives in here know about this fellow called Q on the internet.
Yes.
Do you have any suspicion as to who it may be? And also, how does CNN know what time that the police are coming to get you?
Well, I don't know who Q is, and in all honesty, I don't know if Q is real. I hope so, given what they predict. It's a little disconcerting, without even getting into the question of why CNN was 25 feet from my front door. The street was secured. My neighbors were told to stay in the house because I was deemed to be dangerous, yet they were allowed to film, my arrest. It is disconcerting to say the least. Beyond that, I don't want to comment.
Two more questions. Number one, thank you for being here. Do you feel that your present problems are possibly because someone doesn't want you to be working on the 2020 election?
I'm not in a position to speculate, but I'm supporting Donald Trump no matter what.
I just want to know what you think we can do about the dirty dozen. Those Republicans who are voting against the president.
Use the microphone.
About the dirty dozens.
Well, I think they have to have their feet held to the fire in inter-party contests. I mean, I would love to see Matt Gaetz challenge Marco Rubio. I'm happy to take one more question. One more question.
What are you going to do about the Jewish vote? They vote Democrats. How can we sway them? You cannot do it by preaching.
It is extraordinary to me. It is extraordinary to me. First of all, as you probably know, it was former President Richard Nixon who saved Israel from annihilation in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Over the objections of Dr. Kissinger, over the objections of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, over the objections of his own National Security Council. I do not understand how people in the party of Harry Truman and John F. Kennedy cannot stand up for the state of Israel. It is hard to understand. And I cannot understand why Jewish voters would continue to vote for Democrats when it was Donald Trump who had the courage to finally do what we've been saying we would do in multiple Republican platforms and move the Capitol. Again, I want to thank you for your hospitality. It's been great to be with you. If I didn't mention it, Stone Defense Fund, $2 million I need to raise. I'll be happy to sign stones or books or pose for a picture. If you want to make a contribution tonight, you can do so by credit card at the table. Thank you again, and God bless you.